And what I love about Guy is I think that he is a very smart man who really respects the roughness and the edginess of the streets. And there's a vulnerability about people who are tough.
Yeah.
There's something vulnerable about them underneath all of that toughness. And it's not that they're posing, it's that they're protecting something. You know, and so it's interesting to me that he sort of unravels what they may be protecting. In the moments of violence in this show where you see someone lose it, which you will see, or be completely out of control, when things bad that happen, it becomes, in a way, funny that they are not able to control their emotions.
Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on such a fun, wild ride. This is actually an audience of your fellow actors. They're all SAG-AFTRA members. Yeah. And so...
Love it.
I always like to start by going back to the beginning and asking, what was your first job as an actor? You know, the first time you got paid for it or felt you could call yourself an actor?
Oh, Jesus. God, my first ever job... my first ever job was with Bryan Cranston, actually. I was in this film, and I was... what was it? It was called Red Tails, and I had to play Bryan Cranston's kind of butt friend or whatever. Not butt friend, but as in like a... he was like an evil...
Straight in with butt friend.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a different
And
movie
we're
than I
off.
remember. Yeah.
He was an evil... I had to play kind of a guy who spoke... gave him details, where you walk next to him and he'd be like, tell me the stats. And I would say like, well, sir, the blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I got to set, and I'd never been on a set before. I'd never seen a camera. I'd never been in that environment at all. And it was a massive set. And instead of action, they had a kind of gong that was like, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Anyway, so we started walking and doing this walking and talking scene, and I dried. And then I just dried about 12 times until they're like, yeah, we can move on. So to your point, I didn't feel I was an actor after that experience. But you always need one of those to warm yourself up, don't you, Dan?
I can jump in with a very similar anecdote, which is... it was my second job. My first job had been, I'd done 3 days on a British comedy pilot. And left drama school to do it in a sort of like, this is the big time, look out world, here I come. And then spent 2 years working in a call center or whatever. Anyway, my next job was on a TV series in the UK called Psychoville, and I played the sidekick to Imelda Staunton. So I was very excited to get to work with her. She was lovely. I was her, I guess I was her butt friend here. Anyway, and I had a sequence where I had to, it was right at the beginning of an episode, I had to drop a file of papers in such a way that it would then cut to all these like papers sort of fanned out on the floor. And it would be a snapshot of all these different characters to kind of set up the whole series of the show. And I kept dropping this file of papers and it would just sort of land on the floor like... And they'd be like, no, man, you have to drop it so it looks like the paper's at least sort of splaying out. And I just sort of kept doing it, take 12, take 13, take 14. Like the director I could see him by the monitors just tearing his hair out. And everyone was being super patient, and including Imelda Staunton. And even she, who's the most lovely person in the world, eventually turned to me and went, come on. I didn't get fired,
good.
It was a long time after that I don't know if I do consider myself a proper actor. I think I'm not there yet. What about you? What was your first gig?
I started on the Broadway stage at I started on the Broadway stage at 8 years old in a show called Maggie Flynn with Jack Cassidy and Shirley Jones.
Wow!
And so I think that's the first time I felt like I was a real actor, because I was cutting my teeth on Broadway every night with some real greats at that time, and I was young.
Literally cutting your teeth.
Yeah.
You were 8.
Yeah, I was 8 years old. Yeah, and Stephanie Mills was in that show, and Kevin Lindsay, and of course Jack Cassidy, Shirley Jones, who were really great idols of mine at that time. Jack had a great, beautiful voice, and there was something about being able to be on the stage and to be able to have a show that went from beginning to end without breaking that fourth wall And it was really interesting to be able to hold that audience in the palm of your hand. And so I started to develop a craft, and I did I did 13 Broadway musicals before I ever ventured into being in front of the camera. And then I had to relearn everything. I remember going to Shirley Rich for a big audition for a film called Taps, and she said, "You need to learn how to act." And I sat in her office and I had a tear in my eye. She said, "No, let me amend that. You know how to act, but you have to learn how to act for the camera, which means you have to learn how to do nothing." And so I didn't get that part. It's hard for actors just to do nothing and just to be. And then a year later, I got a call saying, come back. Shirley wants to see you for this film called Taps. I said, "Oh, they already made that. I didn't get that." "Well, they didn't make it, and she wants to see you again." And she gave me advice the first time around to go and do off-Broadway theater. And that's how I made the transition from a musical comedy performer to being a legitimate actor. And I came back and read for her, and she looked at me and she said, "What did you do?" I said, "I did nothing."
Ah, nice. I didn't know Taps was. It was also Tom Cruise's film debut.
Tom Cruise, Timothy
Penn?
Hutton, Sean Penn.
Wow.
Yeah, and Tom, that wasn't the role he was supposed to play. He got bumped up for another cat who wasn't cutting the mustard, and
because they couldn't drop papers right. Or
one of those people who couldn't fan out the file.
They don't teach that at RADA.
Think of cards, poker, baby.
Vinnie, for you, I think I might know the answer to this, but I want to hear it from you.
What was the question?
Your first job as an actor.
Oh, that was easy. I was a professional football player at the time, and I got a phone call that these two young fellas were making a movie, and would I go and meet them at a golf club and have a cup of tea with them? And one was Matthew Vaughn, and the other one was Guy Ritchie.
Wow.
And I was still playing. Matthew Vaughn. Obviously, they had a company called Scar because that was our music in them days. But anyway, I went and had a cup of tea with them, and they said, "We're doing this movie." They told quite a few lies as it happens. "We're doing this," and Matthew Vaughn is the biggest liar on the planet, but he gets the job done. And I ended up with the bill for the coffee because they didn't have enough money for that. And the interesting thing was, some of the names, and the one I always remember was Ray Winstone. They said, Ray Winston's in it. So, I'm in. So, I was actually playing professionally then, and so they said, we'll get you in just a cameo role. And my first ever day on film, I didn't make because I was in jail.
What?
The first scene, our day off. So, Guy says to me, he goes, when's your day off? I said, we have Wednesdays off. And we play on Saturdays. We had Liverpool on the Saturday. We were playing Liverpool away on the Saturday. And on the Tuesday, I went out, got into a bit of a fracas, a bit of a punch-up. And so I said to the guy, "I can do Wednesday for you." So Wednesday comes around, and I was still in St Albans Crown Court Police Station, having my mugshot done because I got in a bit of a bar fight. So they were trying to get hold of me, and the driver was outside the house at 6:30 in the morning, apparently, and they were waiting, and then my football manager at the time, had to confess that I got nicked the night before, so I was waiting trial. I was waiting to go up. So they went great. Guy said absolutely fantastic, and they stood by me. The thing was, they could have dropped me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But they said, "When's your next day off?" And I said, "Next Wednesday." They said, "Would you please not go out Tuesday night?" So we get on set the following week, and my first scene was smashing a guy's head in a sunbed. I went, "This reminds me of last week." It's like, and I thought, it's easy, this acting lark, isn't it? It's quite easy. Until he gave me some lines, and I had a couple of lines I had to do, which kind of terrified me. And then, we did that, and it was all good fun. And then when it came out, I always remember it came out, and it was all good fun, and it sort of, in London and England, it sort of went nuts pretty quick. Mm-hmm. And I went to the boys, and I said to them, to Matthew and Guy, and I said, "Listen, we've done this movie." And there was only one real actor. It was a guy called Jason Fleming. He was like the real actor in it. He'd done some acting. And he kept saying, which I've learnt now, and if they ever tell you this, don't believe it. Everyone, the biggest lie in acting I found is the rushes are great. Yeah, brilliant. The rushes. That's all I kept hearing. You know, they weren't very good at all. The rushes were awful when I look back on it. But yeah, it was. You know, for me, it was all surreal. It was all different. And then they were going to bring it out here with Steve Tish got involved and Peter Morton. They got involved to bring it here, and I always remember flying out here for the premiere and how kind of crazy it was, you know, and how good it was. And Guy wasn't here, and he rang me, and I remember it was on Sunset 5, and I went there, me and Staven went there, and Guy said, ring me. So we'd rung him. It was about 8 o'clock at night here, 7 o'clock at night here. And we got there and we came the other way. We came from like east, and we went up, and we didn't see too many people then. Went, oh, we've shit the bed here. You know, but as we got there and went round, there was all, I think it's La Cienega or Fairfax, they were right down the road that everyone was queuing up to get in.
Wow.
And we had Guy on the phone, and we said, we've cracked it, we've done it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that was a great story. But the funny part was we went in, and there was a big black guy at the back, and he had his feet up like this, and we crept in at the back just to see how many were in the audience, and he was there, and he was like, ha 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 ha, he was laughing like that, and I leant over, right, and I'm on the screen, I leant over, I said, he's good, isn't he? And he looked around like that, and he absolutely crapped himself. He couldn't believe it. And we ran out of the theatre.
You just popped in to terrify them.
But yeah,
Okay.
so that's how it all happened,
love it.
and then go on, and then Snatch came along. So that's how I got into it really, and retired from professional football, and Jerry Bruckheimer gave me my first chance here. So.
I am so sorry that Max has to follow that, because I'm going to guess you weren't in prison the night before your first acting job.
I have not been in prison. But I was very naughty when I was younger. But I'm into meditation and flower arranging now. It's all fine. My first acting job, I was 10. I did Dr. Faustus at the Royal Exchange with Ben Kingsley, and it was the year after he'd done Gandhi, but it hadn't come out yet. And I always remembered the magic of the theatre and loving it, but also being terrified by it. And so I've actually not done any since that. But the first acting job that I got, I was very, very fortunate. I went to New York. I studied with a phenomenal method acting coach out there called Sheila Gray, brilliant teacher. And I came back to the UK, and then I auditioned for a period drama called The History of Tom Jones, A Foundling, which was the BBC's version of the movie, which of course starred Albert Finney. And I didn't think there'd be any chance at all of me getting the role. There were some of my contemporaries at the time, you know, Jude, Ewan, all these guys were coming out of college, and they were starting to hit at that point. And a lot of actors wanted it, and for some reason they offered me the role, which was amazing, with Samantha Morton and Lindsay Duncan, Brian Blessed, and it was an incredible baptism of fire. And I didn't have a clue I really did not know what I was doing. But Brian Blessed was such a gentleman. He took me under his wing a little bit, Brian, and he'd school me each day and help me, and because I was very, very nervous, and I really do. I look back at it and just think I had no idea, you know. I remember one day we did an eating scene, and it was it's an 18th century novel, Henry Fielding novel. It's a brilliant story, and they fed me fava horrendous fava beans and ham hock, and we do the first take on.
You must have been very gassy, I imagine.
It was incredibly gassy, yes. But we did the first take on a master shot at the end, and I'm like,
Oh no!
eating the whole thing. I'm going, yeah, this is great. We did about 16 takes, and I learned very quickly to. But equally, it really annoys me when I see actors pretend acting, eating. Just eat it, man, and just get
Or
on with
holding
it.
an empty cup.
Yeah,
it
really?
makes me
And how was
crazy.
that for you? So yeah, but that was my first gig, and it came out here on A&E, and it did very, very well. So I was very, very, very fortunate.
Oh, fantastic. Well, again, congratulations on The Gentleman. This show does come to us from the great Guy Ritchie. It's set in the same world as his film, The Gentleman. I'm curious, how familiar were you with that world, and what interested you in coming aboard the series, especially Theo taking on, a lead role in a series like this?
Yeah, Dan, what would you say? Yes, Guy was seminal in our youth. We were kind of 16 or whatever we were when Lock, Stock came out.
Was it 98, Lock, Stock?
98.
98, 13. There you go.
Yes, so
That was a pointless little. I don't know why I insisted on it. Because I'm a movie nerd. Yeah, it was. It would have been the March.
Well, you said have you guys known each other a while?
We used to date for a while, for years. No, we actually did. We went to the Old Vic drama school. Both did postgraduate degrees, I guess, there.
Correct, Mundo.
And we knew each other there, but we weren't great pals. But now we are.
There you go. But yeah, we're very much, I guess, the generation who watched those movies and I remember, I was going to say, I can't remember if I said this to you before, but I remember where I was when my dad had gone on a date, I think, and come home and said to me, like, we went to see this movie tonight, you're going to love it, it's amazing. There's all these gangsters and they're like throwing cards at the screen and it does these freeze frame things. And I was like, I need to see this fucking movie. And so then when Snatch came out, it was... back in the days when you could go and buy the soundtrack.
Oh, sure.
Before the movie came out. And so then knowing, like, you were in it and loved you from Lock, Stock, hearing the little snatches of dialogue that they had throughout it. You're like getting a little glimpse into the movie before it comes out. So it was, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but definitely I think those movies had a huge impact. And it was like the era of Tarantino and Fincher and that kind of like 90s crime cinema wave.
He actually came to the Snatch premiere, Tarantino, and
No way.
he was the most humble guy there.
Really?
Yeah, he went round all of us and absolutely made a fuss of everyone, and that was like
Did he like it?
he loved it.
Did he?
Absolutely loved it. And I did work for him on something, and then I nearly worked on Inglourious Bastards with him, but
Oh, no way.
nearly,
That movie
which I
was
wanted to.
amazing.
But just to throw that in there,
Yeah.
he was so humble and nice, and just made a fuss of everybody.
So cool.
It's interesting because I was actually gonna the two of you. I love the relationships in this show, and you really do feel like brothers for all the good and bad that entails. I have brothers; they make me crazy.
He'll drop you when he's James Bond, though, Daniel.
yeah, quite right too. No, I'll be,
Daniel.
I'll be Moneypenny. Okay.
But I am sort of curious. Like, did that chemistry come pretty immediate since you've known each other? Or do you find that something that I always think it's strange to put two people in a room and say like pretend like you've known each other your whole lives. But in this case, you really had known each other a while.
Yeah, and you never know how it's going to go in terms of that relational chemistry or anything like that. But your job is to find it. But yeah, we hung out quite a lot because we wanted a shorthand. And then the way Guy works, as you've heard many times, is that the script is skeletal, so you know where you're going, you know how you're entering a scene and how you're exiting it, but everything in between is up for grabs on the day. And that process as well, you end up kind of getting to know each other and how your rhythms work and trying to create the best thing possible, and especially in comedy, that immediacy, that ability to kind of change in the moment really helps the kinetic energy that is very much Guy's, world.
Giancarlo, you are playing the mysterious Stanley. Seems to be a nefarious character. You are notoriously one of the nicest people in the business. Why do you keep getting cast as these bad dudes? What is it about you?
There's really an asshole inside me, dying to come out.
No, you're just really good at imposing figures, I think.
I like to control the chaos, and because I realize in my own life I can't control anything. And to get a role where you can be comported in a certain way and play it close to the vest and control the energy of a room is interesting to me. With Guy, I like what he does because I'm also a fan of Lock, Stock, and Snatch as well. And I love that he trusts people to be who they are. He casts them for the pieces of them that he sees that exist. And I remember seeing this gentleman and just thinking, wow, there's something about his being comfortable in his own skin, no matter what you do, Vinnie, there's no apology to it. And so to be a part of something that has movement and has depth and has familial ties. With this particular piece, what's really interesting to me is that it really is about family. The family that you're running away from, the family that you're seeking, and the family that you like to be in. For me, I'm realizing so much about our wonderful lead done so well by Theo. He leaves a family of men. I have an experience in the military school. That's a whole other family, and he has to come back to be the hero in a sense to save his family from economic ruin. In his family of origin. So to be a part of this was really fabulous for me because I like filmmaking that moves and it has movement and it has and Theo used the great word kinetic energy. So for me to play Stanley and to have a conversation with Guy that allowed me to know this guy's the richest man in the world and can do anything he wants, yet he is captivated with their culture and society. And knows a lot about it and wants to be, who he is. He wants to be that Lord in a way. And so he's very polite in the way he does things. And so far you don't know what he's really after, but you find out very quickly and what he's willing to do to get it. Yes, he's a dangerous man because he has all the means at the tips of his fingertips. So really interesting being one of the only Americans in this particular cast also allowed me to feel like, how do I insert myself in a way that that has them believe that I could get what I wanted from them and that I'd be polite in trying to do it. I'm going to buy you any way I can. And when I can't, then I'll go through other means, which you'll see as the series unfolds.
Do the rest of you haze him as one of the sole Americans? Because I would.
No, he's unhazeable, I think.
Yeah.
Too cool.
He's invited to tea and all that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Kind.
And Vinnie, for you have worked with Guy so many times. I'm curious, what makes him so special as a director, especially with actors, because he's able to get these great performances out of all sorts of people?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you start off your career, he started and got his break. He went around with Lock, Stock for a couple of years until he met Matthew Vaughn and... Matthew had some great connections with Steve Tisch and Peter Morton and people like that, so they sort of gave him a little bit of a leg up. But at that time, I mean, we said it last night, I was the only one earning any money, so they would come and watch me play football and then eat the buffet and all after the game and everything.
Actors can relate.
Yeah.
We all know what you're talking about.
And then on Snatch, I don't know if the lads know this one, on Snatch, Guy decides that I'm going to play a double role in Snatch. Do you know this story? I told you.
A bit of it.
Right, so I was going to play Mickey and Big Chris. Then all of a sudden, Guy...
Who played Mickey in the end?
No.
Who played Mickey in the end?
Brad.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah.
Wait,
but he rings me. Guy rings me and he goes, we're talking about, Americans in the movie. So Guy rings me. He says, I got good and bad news. Okay, what's the good news? Brad Pitt's rung me and he's asked what I'm doing. I said, well, actually, I've just written Snatch. And I was here filming Gone in 60 Seconds. So he rung me and he said, I got good and bad news. So the good news is we got Brad Pitt. The bad news is I don't know where to put him, so I'm going to have to split. I was going to do the two roles, the twins.
Okay.
And the script was a bit different. It was different, so he rewrote the stuff once Brad came on board. But I think that was so important for the movie. All of a sudden, then Benicio came on board, Dennis Farina came on board, and it all of a sudden turned into a real movie. You knew you was on a real movie. But I mean, we kept it real.
Right.
Because on Lock, Stock, we honestly didn't have anything. We were all crammed, I would go and buy a dozen McDonald's for lunch and stuff and put it around, on the set and everything. And so we kept that going on Snatch. There was no... big buffets and it was, there was three of us in one little trailer, like an old, the caravans in Snatch. Well, they were our trailers. We used them. Me, Dennis, and Brad in one trailer, and there was a bit like a curtain across. So that little bit there was Brad's, and me and Dennis was in this side. And then in the end, we ripped it down, and we put a little table in. We used to play poker every day. So all the way through Snatch, we used to play poker.
I'm getting this theme that they were keeping you around for food. It sounds like you had the buffet, you brought the craft services.
Yeah, man, you
Was
were the
the only I was
caterer.
on,
Yeah.
but on Snatch it got a little bit better. But
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I, you know,
It's-
on
it's
Lockstock
improved,
it
I'm
was
sure.
it
Yeah.
was bare bones. There was, and then they you know, Trudy Styler came on in the end. There was no money for pre-production. They sold it through Polygram, I think, for the soundtrack.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So they bought the soundtrack. Matthew told them the movie's coming out. It had no distribution.
Wow.
So now they've got a soundtrack with no movie. They had to bring the movie out. Otherwise, man, none of us would be sitting there.
I mean-
And I said that on the first day, actually, of The Gentleman. I sat in Guy's trailer and I looked out the window and this massive production going on and the boys, everyone. And I said, look at this. If it weren't for that little seed all them years ago
Yep.
with locks, none of this would be happening right now.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It was really surreal. Me and Guy had a surreal moment.
I mean, look at this. He's created this whole universe in this world. And Max, you've also worked with Guy before, I know.
He's done two or three with him now, haven't you? Yeah.
How much does it help to step into the Guy Ritchie universe, to have, you know, these amazing clothes, these cars, these sets? You'll see in upcoming episodes, you know, you're in this
Have they not
gritty-
seen me yet? They're
But,
probably
no, they
thinking,
only
what am I
watched
doing
episode
here?
one.
You've not seen it? It's a wonderful performance. Oh,
I
go
think
on.
most people, who here has seen the series? Yeah, I think most people have seen the whole
It's
series.
all right.
Okay.
It's all right. Okay.
How much does it help you as an actor to like have all that, you know, that authenticity and those clothes and that whole atmosphere there?
Well, the clothes are important, but it's the same with any job. You just do your preparation. You prep and prep and prep and prep. However, when you've done all of that, and for this character, Henry Collins, a boxing promoter, it was great for me because I used to box. I knew numerous boxing promoters, two of which were my family friends. And I knew a lot of very, very serious dark characters in Manchester and London as well. And so you can personalize what you're looking on the page. You make your choices. You can nick things from different people. But when you get onto the set, and to your point with the clothes, you know, it's very specific for me. I'm a bit of a weirdo about what am I wearing, what are the shoes, I mean, I could take days trying to pick these things out, and people think I'm an idiot, but it's important to me. But when you've done all that preparation, as we all should, then you've got to kind of throw it away. You've got to, obviously, the two most important things are being relaxed on set and listening to your fellow actors and that, because you know there were scenes. There was a scene with Kaya that was in the office that I have, and she was meant to be quite cantankerous in it, but she placed it somewhere else. She started dancing over here, and it was a softer thing. So you know, if you're listening, then now you're into a different dance, and now the work's changing, and that's what's exciting. And Ben Mendelsohn's another one that does it.
Oh,
Ben you work with him, and it'll be like a ferocious scene, and he doesn't rehearse. He doesn't like to rehearse whatever. We mark it out with the cameras. But when you come to shoot it, I do remember on The Outsider, he did a scene with me where he was meant to be steaming into me, and I was meant to be going for him, you know, psychologically, and he just played it like that. We're very caring, very loving, and it worked. The choice worked. But all of a sudden, you can't do anything but then go with that flow,
Yeah.
and then go, we're on a different path here. This is nice. Rather than what you read on the page being the most obvious choice, try and find something within the world, of course, that's interesting, you know. And so with Guy, once you've done your work, you've done your preparation, you've done your homework, you've got a very good idea of what your personalization is and who you are, then you have to be pliable and you have to be pulled around by him a little bit. And I think this job particular, working with him, Mike Figgis is another one. Mike does a lot of improvisation. Mike works in a musical form. He might say, Max, you're the drums here. Reese, you're the trumpet. You're blowing on this. Now, with improvisation, we all know actors on the first take will just talk. And then he'll go, it's too much. And then on the second take, Aaron will be really try and be cool and not say anything and just a look here or there. And then Mike would come in and go, you got to give me that. I've got to get that, and I've got to get that. And now you're swinging. Now it works. So it's a tool that one should have as an actor. I think there are some actors that don't like it, find it a face. You know, it's too much. But I think it's as important to be able to swing and dance with this sort of material as it is to go and go and do Chekhov or do scripted television where you've got 5 writers watching the monitors that are like every single word's got to be on point, especially on the American shows. They're just great. It's just a great experience, basically.
Speaking of improvisation and costumes, actually, because they've watched the first episode, Daniel, I want to talk about the chicken suit scene. Sorry, you probably knew this was coming. And Theo, being on set, like, I would think actually one of the hardest parts of this job would not be laughing during some of these takes. Maybe not in that scene because it's also terrifying. But just sort of out of curiosity, because it's one of these things that it's like so painful and builds and builds and builds. Can you kind of talk about how many days you shot that, what that day was sort of like, how you prepare for that?
Yeah, there wasn't a ton of preparation to be done, partly because it wasn't that there wasn't that much on the page. It's sort of Freddie does the chicken dart, and it was quite we've said this before, but it was quite a different scene on the page. So it became this much bigger sequence, and ultimately sort of developed out of Peter Serafinowicz, who plays Tommy Dixon there.
That's how you say it.
Serafinowicz?
I
think that's how you say it.
Okay.
Is that how you, that is, yes, that's how you say it.
Been too embarrassed to ask.
And it really mostly came about from discussion with the 4 of us and kind of the blocking of how the thing would work when, there was a sort of few complicating factors of like, why wouldn't you jump in and save me? How is that going to work? But it was mostly about Peter kind of barking instructions and me just having to follow that. But it was nerve-wracking because it also it had to be funny. We shot it. There's another bit I think it's the next episode where we end up filming the chicken dance again on a camera phone to try and cover up the murder. And we shot that later. And I do something completely different in that, So it was like, oh fuck yeah, God no! I have to actually. There's supposed to be a dance in it, It doesn't really make sense actually. Obviously you show me on the phone, don't you? Oh yeah, I have to do this chicken dance. So there were kind of like little things that I had to try and get in there, but it was nerve-wracking. I kept coming over to Theo and Kaya and saying like, is this good? Is this bad? Is it too big? Is it They were like, I don't know.
So supportive.
Good luck, motherfucker. No, they were. But that's a joke. They were incredibly supportive, and we were all. We were kind of all in the shit together, and there was probably 1 or 2 days. The bits that are the kind of cutaways, so where I'm like outside, in the bathroom, racking up loads of lines of coke, and then sort of flipping out. Those were done on different days, and if I'm honest, I didn't really know some of those bits. I didn't really know what we were doing. So like that bit.
What about when you come out of the French doors? Did you actually slip over then?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Oh,
You
that
didn't mean to.
Yeah, that is just I just fell on my ass. Yeah. I was,
Improv.
That's fucking good acting.
Improv,
if he's
baby.
done that.
But the bit which is it's kind of fun because I like the way it jumps around in time and the music starts building and you get a bit confused. But the bit where I kind of come out and I'm like screaming and hitting my head, that was one of those things where I think we'd maybe just done the chicken dance thing and they just pulled me off to one side. It wasn't on the call sheet, was it? They just said, "Oh, you come here," and it was like, "We need to see the moment where you decide to do it." And they pretty much just, and they shoot so fucking quick. And he starts doing the countdown. He'll go, "Going in 10, going in 9." So everyone's,
That started on Lock, Stock. With
Did it really?
With
Yeah.
the DP, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we had to do it so quick.
I mean, it's effective. It gets
yeah,
everyone.
and he'll
it gets
get the
everyone
DP
moving.
going. He'll go, "We're going."
And
he used to fine us and stuff like that. But the trouble with that is, and I've done it, even like on big shows like Law and Order and everything, you get, for me, I've only got 1 or 2 or 3 takes max. So I put everything into that. And, my only comeback is for these directors on TV shows, I go, well, Guy Ritchie wouldn't have done it like that, mate. But I brought up in 2 or 3, I love it, 2 or 3 takes, bang, I'm done.
It is effective because you just you don't have time to get all up inside your head. And you just have to commit to it, and I think it is a game of trust. And I definitely relied on these guys at points to come and say to him like, and really valued it when, because you know that there's like a thing like you don't want actors that you don't want to give each other notes, but that like unprompted, right?
Sure.
So I would go and ask you, and you'd be like, yeah, I think I liked it when you did the da da da, and we kind of carried that going on throughout the thing because it is nerve wracking, you know, when you're
course,
like
yeah.
improvising, doing these things.
Theo,
but
are you
I'm
just
like-
exhausted just watching him?
No, it's a joy. I just sit back and enjoy it.
I was exhausted just watching that episode.
His breakdown, yeah. I mean, the nice thing about it is there's an emotionality to it. You know, you've said this before, but the idea that this man has been passed over and he is every emblem of his self is crumbling at that moment. You know, he thought he was going to be Lord of the Manor and everything that represents, and he ends up having none of it. So his identity is in crisis.
See,
Right?
now I'm understanding why you're able to play Eddie, who I just sometimes want him to kill Freddie and solve all these problems, but he's so empathetic towards him.
Yes, because he loves him, you know?
But why?
I saw that there is, you know, you shouldn't read reviews, whatever, but I remember, in fact, I think someone very kindly sent it to me. There was a newspaper headline, which is Netflix fans rage over most annoying TV character in TV history. I was like,
That's a compliment.
well, better to be known for something, I guess.
It's honestly a testament to how good you are that I just,
Well, thank you very much.
I
It was-
need him to kill you and bring everyone peace.
Yeah.
And Fred is my favorite name too, so it's like really yeah, it's my
exactly.
dog's
So you
name.
can't kill it.
Yeah, you can't kill a Fred.
You're not going to
You know,
kill
I
a dog.
love him.
Yeah.
There's some obvious parallels with, you know, not that you'd ever emulate the greatest film of all time, but there's some clear parallels, you know, Freddie, Fredo, Michael Corleone coming back to the family seat, blah, 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 you know.
I thought I was so clever thinking of that myself. Just vindicated me. I do want to know though, because you know, there's been such a huge response to this show, and you pretty much play like the coolest character ever. What have people sort of come up and wanted to talk about when they see you, or are they scared of you? Or maybe that's Giancarlo they're scared of.
Yeah, no, I just get told to go fuck myself. What I've enjoyed about this actually is the breadth of people that have watched it. You know, the job before this was White Lotus, which was a great show and very well written and everything. But it's kind of people that would say something would be kind of people like us, whereas The Gentleman is that, but it's also I don't know, anyone, kind of on the spectrum of people, and I really enjoy that. So you end up having very random interactions with people in a joyous way.
And Giancarlo, after like going after Baby Yoda, which is like the worst thing somebody can do, I imagine playing a guy this nefarious is easy. Like
It's not easy. This guy's a little bit more refined than
He's
any other
very
character I
refined.
played in that modality. You know, he's respectful in many ways, and he's very refined, and he's very smart, and so he's really maneuvering in a way that is more polite than any of the bad guys I've played. He's not brash. He's calculating, yes, but very polite and with bearing, and wants to be respectful of everyone he's trying to manipulate. So it's to me it's very, very different. He also wants someone to come around and in a way be his partner, be that mouthpiece for him. We can do this together. He doesn't want to leave England. He wants to just cultivate his business there and stay there forever. And he's very respectful of the protocol with which everyone treats each other there. So he's adopted that very deeply. So, you know, to me, it has been a very interesting character to play in that manipulation, using the right words, telling the right stories. He's a storyteller as well, and figuring it out. And when he gets, you'll see how he may hit, what happens to him, and how he may get played. It doesn't bother him because he's so steeped in the reality of who he is. So he's not troubled by it. He's going to find another angle.
And people love him, and honestly, I feel bad even referring to him as a villain because nobody in this show is necessarily a good person. So,
You know, that's the wonderful part of what Guy
Yeah.
Ritchie does, and I think what
but
all
we
these
love him.
what all of the actors here do in such a wonderful way is that there is and what I love about Guy is I think that he is a very smart man who really respects the roughness and the edginess of the streets. And there's a vulnerability about people who are tough.
Yeah.
There's something vulnerable about them underneath all of that toughness. And it's not that they're posing, it's that they're protecting something. And so it's interesting to me that he sort of unravels what they may be protecting in the moments of violence in this show, where you see someone lose it, which you will see, or be completely out of control. When things bad that happen, it becomes in a way funny that they're not able to control their emotions.
Yeah.
In many ways, and this relationship that happens here with these two brothers is very, very interesting, because someone is crumbling because they didn't get what they feel like rightfully deserve, and someone else is level-headed, saying there's a bigger picture here that we have to preserve and save, and all that with all the wine that's involved and the killing of all the pain that Freddie may be in is also very interesting. So what I love and see about what happens in this is that vulnerable quality of humanity underneath anything that is displayed on the surface.
Well, again, thank you so much for being a great audience. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Rado.